I really miss it. I use my MacBook now. Not very. To be honest, I don't really use it anymore. And I use it for the recording now. And I used it yesterday to do something. I can't remember why. And as soon as I use it, I try and scroll with my finger. That's probably the single best thing about the Surface is is being able to sort of just touch the screen to do little things.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know. I keep going to touch the screen on our desktop PC. It's just you just kind of get used to it. I'll have to try and invest in a touch screen, even though I didn't think I'd really want one in the study. But
okay, right. I've got everything recording, streaming. We've got people in the chat room already. Oh, right. Like Rich, thanks for like this is the design that I'm glad. Spent quite a bit of time playing with it. The design. It's more magazine-like, I think, and there's we could do to it. So. Right. Jason, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Hi, Ian. Good to be back. How you doing?
Okay. And now, all right, shall I let you talk about new phones, or should we skip talking about phones this week, and we'll just talk about that in another week?
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about really. I think we cover Windows Phone enough. We shouldn't talk about it anymore.
No, we can't do that to you. So, have you got a new device there?
I have. Yes, arrived on Friday. Although I was starting to panic when it got to like 5:30 at night and it still hadn't turned up. But yes, on Friday my my white Lumia 920 turned up in black.
Yeah, I remember you saying you cancelled the order or something, didn't you?
I
reordered it and
because I hadn't realised that on T-Mobile UK you could have a choice of colours, so I rang up to change it, and the nice lady on the phone cancelled my original order and put through a new one for a white one. But it turned up and it was opened the box and there was a black 920 looking at me. But I'm not really that fussed. I just quite fancy something a bit different, but I'm really not all that fussed. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have exchanged it. But I just couldn't keep my hands off it. The thought of having to package it back up and wait for another one to arrive was just too much to bear.
Absolutely. So we better. Well, before we go to that, we can. There's quite a few things we can talk about today. So we'll talk about your phone. I can talk a bit more using the 8X as well, which I have to say is growing on me. There's been a couple of Skype updates, maps on iOS. We could talk about your post on the Surface, Media Portal, Netflix, Google Music. Talk about my experience with Google Music, SkyDrive updates, XBMC 12 out, new Skype for Linux, and Android updates as well. So plenty to talk about on the show. But let's. I don't want to put. I want to put you out your misery. Talk about the 920. Now you can definitely say you've been waiting for this.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a big supporter of Nokia. It's it was the phones I always had, and I really want to see them survive. And on top of that, I think they do still make really great hardware. Really impressed with the quality of the 920. I've had a couple of little Windows Phone 8 issues, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But overall, I think the first thing that struck me is the sheer size of the device. I mean, it is big. Obviously not quite to your standard with the Note, but
I'm off big phones now. I'm on small phones now.
Yeah, I think to me it had a bigger impact because I'd gone from the 800 to the 920. If I'd still been using my Omnia 7, I think I probably would have noticed it less because I know even just switching from the 800 to the Omnia 7, that felt like a big phone again. But no, I mean, I
what size is the screen then?
It's 4.5.
Right, so this 8X I'm using is 4.3, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's a big screen anyway, bigger than what the 920 was, and on top of that, you've got, I guess, the tech for the camera technology, but most of all, it's got a pretty big battery, and I think it's the biggest battery of all the Windows phones, so I think that's always going to add, quite a bit to the weight, but it just. To my mind, it's certainly not too heavy. It just feels really solid. You're holding something in your hand. That's the best way to describe it. But certainly, kind of build quality, and I've taken a quick few shots. I haven't really done anything specifically to test it, but taken a few quick shots when I took the kids down the park at the weekend. And yeah, it's just really nice. It's responsive and just as you would expect from Windows Phone, and just really nice when that screen just really pops out at you. It's just with the what they call the HD plus screen. It's really nice. Really enjoying it.
So, so how did you find then going from because I have had a sort of gap between Windows phones. So how did you find going from 7.5 to 8? Can you see the big change straight? I was surprised. I thought there might be more changes.
Yeah, I mean, I was tweeting at the weekend. In some ways, I'm a bit disappointed. I've started writing my post because I know I haven't really posted on Windows Phone 8 or even the handsets. I've started my review of the 920 and also kind of started putting my thoughts down on Windows Phone 8. And in some ways, I kind of find myself a bit disappointed, even though there were some good announcements. And but overall, I still feel using the device for my own personal use, other than the fact that you've got the start screen is kind of more personal in terms of being able to choose different tile sizes. Actually, when you get down to what's really new about it, I think the only thing that's really big deal for me is maybe the kids' corner. The NFC stuff I don't actually have a use for. IE10, it's at the end of the day, it's just a browser. I never really had a problem with the old version. A lot of the features that they were touting just for me doesn't seem that much of a big step forward. Now I know that the big thing for Windows Phone 8 is the underlying platform, the fact that it should now be easier for other companies to bring their apps across from other devices, so that hopefully we should start to see some parity on the app front. But I've just got this overwhelming feeling that there's been so much effort in terms of rebooting the platform again and having to rebuild Windows Phone 7 first before they could get to the point of being able to add new features. So I think that's initially where the engineering effort's been focused. And now as a tweet, I think you even retweeted it for me, that really now over the next 3 to 6 months they need to bring some new features quite quickly.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on that. When you first you don't feel a huge amount of difference. It's not like going from, say, Android 2 or Gingerbread on a phone, and then sort of 2 years later you get one with Jelly Bean. You can see a huge change, but you kind of know behind the scenes there's a huge amount of work gone underneath. But yeah, there isn't a massive amount of change. There's just some subtle changes, but I suppose it's about the platform, isn't it, and what that can deliver in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That it's a case of it has to be looked upon. It's yet another reboot, which means all that engineering effort that could have gone into adding new features has been just getting back to ground zero again.
Yeah, I mean, things like the future is how the Skype app is, I suppose, isn't it? That it's got background notifications and you can get calls and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of promise there, but it is very responsive though. I presume the Nokia's the same. It is ultra responsive, and there's no slowdowns like you get from other phones like Android, particularly. Maybe not the iPhone, but that's one thing I like about it. But it does feel nice and fresh though. The OS, once you get into it, it is a nice experience.
Yeah, I mean there are some really nice things, and certainly you point out a good example of the Skype app, the way it now fully integrates and runs in the background. So there are new features in there. It's I'm very much talking from my own perspective that it doesn't feel much new. I mean, Windows Phone 7 always felt really responsive even on single core, so I never really felt the need for a dual core. But I think certainly one of the things I am enjoying is being able to tailor the start screen. There was one of the things that always slightly niggled me was the fact that I had this massive icon for the telephone, for the phone functionality, when actually I didn't need it to be that big. So I've spent quite a bit of time tailoring some of those tiles down. Some of the tiles I felt I've needed to leave either at the original size or expand to double width, just because when you make them tiny, a lot of the live tile functionality disappears. So, for example, the calendar, if you shrink that down to the smallest quarter size, you don't get any appointment information. So that I've left as a half, kind of the full square tile. But other things like mail app, you can make that into the quarter square, and you'll still get the counter. So yeah, it's certainly taken me more time playing around with the phone, just trying to get it set up, just how I like it.
Yeah, and a couple of things from Rich. He says we'll talk about the reboot ones, but he said he's not experienced. So I'll come back to that. He said the client software. We can come back to that as well because that's a story as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Opera as a platform, I think it is good. I found there's a few things. I think we talked about the maps and the podcast apps. I've got some news on the podcast apps actually, so I'll come back to. But the maps. So how have you found Nokia's own mapping app, the Nokia Drive, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't really had a chance to use it because I've started working from home, so I don't have a daily commute anymore, other than kind of getting dressed and rambling downstairs. So I haven't really had a need to really try it out. I obviously had a look at it. I've kind of disappointed to see that my commute functionality is not in the beta. But yeah, I've mainly just been kind of playing around with the Skype functionality and things like that.
Yeah, because I mean the from my personal from going from Android, I mean there's not many that people are going to I suppose really switch. There's going to be a few people, and maybe people get sick with Android phones, maybe not getting their updates because they're no, they're not a Nexus device, so they don't get updates, or maybe they're sick of it crashing or something like my Note does every now and again. It likes to reboot, although it's something that's followed me. So you might be coming across, but I found that the the one thing I do like is the turn by turn navigation, and that was promised, wasn't it? For well, it was mentioned that it would be coming to other Windows devices other than the Nokia range, and that's not turned up yet. Actually, I was going to do a post on this. I haven't got a chance yet, but Navigon have announced they've put in the store their full turn by turn app, which looks very detailed and it's got live traffic and everything, but it's £70 for the European version.
Yeah, it's quite expensive, but I think because it includes all the maps.
Yeah, but when I do travel to Europe, a couple of times a month or whatever, I very rarely drive, so I'm not really that bothered. I'd be happy to sacrifice that and just have a UK only version. If it'd been £30, I would have bought it by now. So that's a bit of a problem. I did reach out to Copilot Live actually, who make there's an iOS and an Android version of that software, and I've used both of those. And in fact, that's the main app that I use, or the main navigation app I use on Android, and suggested that they look at Windows Phone, and they said they're looking at it. So they didn't give me any specifics, but they are evaluating it. So really, that's one area, but everything else I've got music on there, or I've got so podcast we can talk about in a minute, but other apps, email, Facebook, Twitter, everything's there. There's nothing really holding it back.
No, I mean one of the nice things I did discover, which always used to kind of